from Georgia marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma 50 years ago, and last night he was on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart.
This is, you've just crossed the bridge, and this is, I guess, is this the police force from the town?
This is Alabama state troopers. And we get to this point, the state trooper speak up and say, this is an unlawful march, would not be allowed to continue. I give you 3 minutes to disperse and return to your homes or to your church. And Jose Williams said, Major, give us a moment to kneel and pray.
Wow.
And the major said, troopers, advance. And you saw these men coming toward us. They put on their gas masks.
Oh.
They started beating us with nightsticks.
Well, that's the next shot here that's you. That's John Lewis.
I was very young then. I was 25 years old. I had all of my hair and a few pounds lighter.
Consider for a moment the transcendent grace of John Lewis, a grace that allows him to look at a picture of himself being viciously beaten in a racist riot by police who are intent on denying him his essential dignity as a human being and his civil rights as a citizen of the United States, to look at that picture of himself 50 years later and find something about. That is a picture of John Lewis in the process of having his skull fractured. But he can look at that picture now without a trace of bitterness. He can look at it the way a hero would look back at that, without a trace of self-pity. He is nobility personified. I'll never forget the moment when I was working in the Senate and someone told me Congressman John Lewis was on the phone asking to speak with me. The young people in the office didn't know who he was, but I did, and I grabbed the phone with excitement and real awe. I had never met John Lewis, but I knew his voice, and there he was on the phone, the real John Lewis. I'd been in the Oval Office in meetings with the president and many more famous Washington power players then, but this was something else entirely. This was one of the great heroes of the civil rights movement, one of the country's greatest living heroes. And on that day, in that moment, he needed a favor. He was trying to get something done for his district in Georgia, and he needed help with getting it through the Senate. Now, I was ready to do whatever he asked for before he said a word. The bridge he was beaten for trying to cross, the bridge that he eventually successfully crossed with Martin Luther King Jr. was named and is still named the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Edmund Pettus was born in 1821 into a wealthy slave-owning family. He became a decorated Confederate general in the Civil War, and after the war became the Grand Dragon of the Alabama Ku Klux Klan. University of Alabama history professor John Gigi says the bridge was named for him in part to memorialize his history of restraining and imprisoning African Americans in their quest for freedom after the Civil War. If Edmund Pettus had still been alive and in command of the Alabama State Police that day in 1965, John Lewis might not be alive today. It is long past time to change the name of the Edmund Pettus Bridge. A Change.org petition has 166,403 signatures in support of changing the name. And today, as I was idly scrolling through Twitter, I came upon a brilliant suggestion from Irish Stewart, changing the name of the bridge to the John Lewis Bridge. The bridge American heroes like John Lewis and Martin Luther King Jr. marched over was named for an American disgrace. Let's rename it for an American hero.